I love the fact that documentary helps change people's perspective on the world, my perspective, the perspective of the audience. You know, when you see somebody going through something and you get to know them and care for them, all of a sudden they're no longer an issue. All of a sudden they're a person, and so you perceive whatever issue shows up in their film in a different way. Risking Light is the story of 3 people from around the world who've forgiven the unforgivable. And so it starts with a story of a woman in Minneapolis named Mary who forgave the man who murdered her child. Her only child. And then we go on to a story in Cambodia where a man forgives after being a victim of the Khmer Rouge. So genocide, essentially, and he was a slave as a child in these labor camps. Deborah Hawking, who is a member of the Stolen Generations, which is a group of essentially Aboriginal children who were taken from their families by the government in Australia over the course of 50 plus years. It was government policy to do so, and raised in a very abusive household, not knowing until she was an adult that she was Aboriginal, not knowing who her family was. And so each of these stories are people who've experienced profound trauma and then have also experienced what it is to forgive and heal, and what that does to change not only their lives but the lives of their communities. We're in a really divisive time in our country and in our world, and it's becoming even more so, I think, with social media and this ability to have these fights with people we don't know, and our ability to empathize with one another is diminishing incredibly. And this film speaks to that in some ways, the ability to have empathy for somebody who has harmed you. I think this is the right time for this film, and so I'm excited to see what audiences think. I'm excited that we're going to be having our Minnesota premiere here, not just because this is home, not just because this is where Mary and O'Shea live, not just because this is where the crew lives, but also this is the first film festival that took a chance on me. And so my first film that I produced with Jamie Lee, called Treading Water, premiered there. And so that was kind of the beginning of my career as a filmmaker, and so coming back to MSPIFF is particularly meaningful.
These were people that believed in God and believed in good things. Why would they do this?
For 20 years, all I was thinking about is revenge. What you have done to me, I can do to you. But you can't just forget about it. If I did, all of these things would have happened for no reason.
You know, I'm not going to visit that 16-year-old boy. He is a man now. I just hugged the man that murdered my son. I just hugged the man that murdered my son.
Justice Day is here.